He's the greatest living American sports writer to me, and he's one of our country's great storytellers. Joe Posnanski's traveled the world, covering everything from Major League Baseball to 10 Olympics games to the World Darts Championship. And you may know him from this. This is the Baseball 100, one of the great books ever written about baseball and about America. Joe counts down the 100 greatest ball players. Deep down, this is a book about our country and about dads and their baseball boys. Well, during our conversation, Joe tells us a story about the great Boston Red Sox catcher Carlton Fisk and his dad. It's a story that'll make you cry. Joe's got a new book coming out about what it means to be a fan. He traveled the world to find out. And we've got a special guest at the end, my son Michael, who gets to ask Joe a couple of questions himself. This conversation was so much fun. Hope you like it. And if you do, take a look at some of my other work here. Give me a like and subscribe. But first, sports writer Joe Posnanski. Joe Posnanski, great to have you. I'm so glad that you're here. And for me, it is both a pleasure and genuinely a privilege. Thanks very much.
Oh, it's great to be here.
Well, I will say, by way of praising you, or as the kids say, glazing you a little bit, I think not only are you one of the great sports writers, and you're one of my favorite writers for sure, and not just about sports, but about our country, about America. And from what I understand, and we'll talk about this, your next book, The World. But this is the book that I love, that our family has read through. It's well worn. It's got stains all over it. The Baseball 100, which is a miracle of writing. I remember reading it as it came out in weekly installments in The Athletic. It was an astonishing feat, truly. But as one of the really great sports writers out there, I'm going to ask first, before we get into biography, what's your favorite sport?
Oh, wow. So everybody would immediately just assume it's baseball because that is the sport I write the most about. And I suppose in the long run it is. But, Terry, we are of an age, I'm probably a little older than you, but we are of an age where you really did write about everything. Kind of grew up in that world. I was a newspaper columnist for many, many years. And so that meant that my entire 365 days was taken by wherever the sport led me. So I'd be, in January, I'd be at the NFL playoffs and the Super Bowl. In February, I'd be at spring training. In March, I'd be at basketball. In April, I'd be at the Masters and opening day. In May, I'd be at the Kentucky Derby. And my kids could give you the full calendar because it was constantly moving. And that's what I loved. I mean, what I loved was this energy of wherever sports took me, and I've, been lucky enough to be to 10 Olympics. I mean, those were some of my favorite events. So yeah, I mean, baseball is my favorite, and I think it's the best writing sport we have. But I love them. I really love every kind of sport, which is, we'll talk about my next book, but that's truly what I love. Doing baseball will never bore me, but I will love just every opportunity I have to write about other stuff as well.
Joe, that is amazing. It is, you've just described really the dream of, I think, like most boys and a lot of girls at some point in their childhood. But also, I'm thinking back, listening to you, first jealous, of course, but also I considered it an incredible piece of luck and blessing in my life, that I got to travel the world. Now, usually if I showed up in your town, something bad had happened.
Right.
I mean, not always, though. I got to meet 4 popes and, see a lot of pageantry and amazing stuff around the world. But to hear the dream come true and what you've done with it. And so I do want to explore that a little bit. I just think, seriously, I think you're a really special writer, somebody who brings heart, mind, soul, and a storyteller's gift to what you do that makes the stories of these games more than just about the games. I think, as I've said, I think this book is one of the best books I know about America.
Well, thank you. I mean, that means the world to me, because obviously that's the goal, right? The goal is to write about sports and sort of without insulting too many sports fans who want you to just write about sports. to write about America and write about the world. And I think you're missing the opportunity. If you're in Beijing for a month at the Olympics, if you're not writing about what that is, what that means, I think you're missing the opportunities. And so for me, honestly, sports has taken me to 6 continents. I mean, I was at the Olympics in Beijing. I was at the Olympics in Russia. I was at the World Cup in South Africa. I was at the Olympics in Australia, Wimbledon, and the British Opens and everything. And so, what a gift. And that'll never come around again. Like that idea of the sort of newspaper columnist who is like covers everything. And this is true in broadcast journalism. This is true in magazine writing. Like I worked at Sports Illustrated where I could go everywhere. Those days are gone, and it's kind of heartbreaking. It's not kind of, it is very heartbreaking that doesn't exist. And I think about how lucky I was to come along when I did.
Same here. And I want to ask you about something, but first I want to ask, I should know this, but who were your teams when you were growing up? Tell me about how this passion and gift came to you. Where'd you grow up?
I think that the passion, I don't know if I'd call it a gift, but the attitude that I have about sports definitely came from where I grew up, because I grew up in Cleveland, and I grew up rooting for teams that were doomed throughout my entire life, still are. And so I grew up a gigantic Cleveland Browns fan in particular. Of course, they were the Indians then. That was a huge, huge part of me, the Cavaliers. And they were all terrible in different ways, right? Like they were all going to break your heart. You just didn't know how. Like if it was baseball, they were going to break your heart, before you even got, in your seat. If they were the Browns, they were going to break your heart, with some disastrous moment at the end of the year or something. And so I grew up in a great sports town, just a passionate sports town, but also a very wounded sports town. And I mean, that's what I grew up with. And I think that has impacted how I think about sports and how I think about that the most compelling stories are often the losing teams. And that's been a part of it. But yeah, I would definitely say that the Cleveland part of me has never gone away.
That's funny. I recently wrote, because I believe in that, I judge cities, American cities in particular, by how intense their fans are, right? How loyal their fans are. By that measure, Buffalo is a great American city. Vegas,
great American city.
Meh, and Cleveland for sure. Now I grew up, I was born in Chicago, grew up right outside. So that 2016 World Series, man, that was a joy for me, but I can imagine. I mean, as I like to say, any team can have a bad century, and and that was the Cubs, but that was a tough one for you guys for sure.
It was, but I it's no tougher than John Elway driving the ball 98 yards for to take out the Browns. It has been a pretty consistent story, and the thing about that year, I mean, and look, I can tell you, I in Cleveland the best selling T-shirt. Was basically that the best day in baseball was, the day before that game, right? When it looked like Cleveland was potentially going to win the World Series. But I would say that there was something about 2016 that was magical. That Cleveland team, nobody expected them to get there. It was a truly magical season. Obviously it was for the Cubs all the way through. And then you have this incredible, never to be forgotten World Series, and Rajai Davis hits what would be one of the most legendary home runs in baseball history. I mean, I think it still is, even with Cleveland losing. And then, of course, you have the rain delay speech. I mean, yeah, it always stings to lose, but if you're going to lose, that's the way to do it, in like this epic fashion.
Yeah, I wonder if the Blue Jays feel the same way. I mean, it was a great series, but what a crusher.
Yeah. Well, I think the Blue Jays probably do not, because I think they felt like they had it multiple times, which Cleveland never did. I mean, Cleveland just tied that game, right? But also, look, if you're a Cleveland fan, you don't have any affinity for the Cubs per se, but everybody understood the Cubs story. The Dodgers win every year, so that makes it sting a little harder.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about the Baseball 100 because I do think it's such a great book. And as I say, the reason I do is because it's a great book about baseball, but about the stories of America, the story of America through the 100 greatest baseball players. And it's also a story, it seems to me, it's a book about dads. Because as you note several times, there's a theme in the book that a lot of the greatest baseball players were driven or encouraged or taught or loved or lost their dads.
Yeah.
And that thread through that is such a beautiful feeling. I mean, I want to know about how that book came about and how you did it because it was amazing every week. Was it Friday?
No, it was every day,
Was-
every single day for 100 days leading into COVID. When because that book literally led right into COVID. So I was going to do 100 in 100 days. That was the idea.
Right,
And
right, right.
then about the last, I'd say 2 months, we spread it out a little more because
Right.
of COVID. So we had to do that.
That's right. I remember every day it dropped. It was
Every
amazing.
single day.
It was
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, it was, my wife will tell you it was sick, is what it was. But that book is, and I'm so glad you bring up the fathers and sons theme because that book came to me in many, many different forms. Like I had done countdowns, 100-player countdowns, a few times on my own personal blog. I started them and I never made it to the end because it was always like, oh, I'm just gonna. The first idea was like, I'll just do a countdown of the 100 greatest players ever, but I'll write like a few paragraphs about each one. I'm not gonna do this, But I couldn't do that because to me the stories were too compelling, and so I kind of kept building on it, and then I would be like, okay, I don't have time to do this anymore, and I would end it at like number 37 or something, and all my readers would be furious, and I'd be like, I can't do it. So when I came up with this idea to do it, when I was working for The Athletic at the time, and I'm like, here's what I'm going to do this time. I'm going to do one every day. That's going to propel me to the end. I'll get to the end that way. Which was, it was brutally hard, but I remember, and I lived it. I lived it for 24 hours a day. I'd be writing, thinking about the next one. I mean, when I would go to bed, I would dream about these, I mean, it was all in me at that point. But I remember very vividly when I kind of felt like, and this has always happened to me for every book. I'm working on a new book now, and it just happened for me, where I understand what the book is. Like I truly, truly, truly understand what the book is. And for me, the project was tell the story of baseball through these players. That was always going to be the idea. But I remember very vividly working, and was about 20 in, and it was writing the Carlton Fisk one. That was the one that changed it. And I was writing about Carlton Fisk, and Carlton Fisk had a very difficult relationship with his father. His father was very, very hard on him, never seemed to, nothing he could do was ever good enough for his father. And there was a very famous story about his father coming to Fenway Park to visit him, and him walking through the clubhouse, and Carl Yastrzemski coming up to him and saying, "Oh, I understand you're Carlton Fisk's father." And he said, "No, Carlton is my son." Yeah, because that was how he viewed it. And there's a beautiful moment at the Hall of Fame ceremony when Carlton Fisk is put in the Hall of Fame, where he looks at his father and he's crying and he's talking about how he really understood, why his father had driven him. But he said, "But today, you're Carlton Fisk's father." And I just thought, well, that's what this book is about. That's what this book is about. Fathers and sons. This book is about what it takes to become that level of great, what you give up, what you take in. And it just changed the way I thought about it. And I don't know that the writing is any different. I don't know if anybody would notice it, but in my mind, there was a clarity of vision. And at that point, I didn't know that it was going to be a book. I knew it was going to be this massive, massive project. but then it was like, okay, but I think this is one thing. It's one cohesive thing, even though it's 100 essays. You can read it any way you want. You could start at the end. You can start at the beginning. But it is a cohesive story. And the story is about this larger thing that is baseball in America and all of that.
And the fathers and sons. I was just thinking as you were talking about the scene in last year's World Series, right? Freddie Freeman,
Yeah.
who he hits the home run, and his first gestures to his dad, whose life he saved
Yeah.
on the ball
Yeah.
field when he was 13 years old after
And
losing his mom. Yeah.
And of course, all he went through with his son. I mean, that was a multi-generational story, which is such a big part of baseball. I mean, it really is. I mean, family. I think it's a big part of all sports. I mean, like to me, one of the most compelling sort of sports stories are those football fans who have had season tickets passed down from generation to generation, right? So I think that's a compelling story across the board. But that scene, I mean, we've all seen that scene at the end of Field of Dreams with, you want to have a catch dad and whatever. I mean, that's sort of, it's a cliche, but it's at the very heart of the game.
It is one of my favorite things to do, to play catch with my son, and I
Yeah.
feel lucky to do it. And it does feel to me like the whole the generational aspect of it is so important. I wonder if it's still as strong. When the Cubs did win the World Series in 2016, the greatest World Series, I was actually in a hotel room in New York because it was just before that election, and I was living in London at the time, so I'd missed most of the series, most of the season, and then was in that hotel watching the game. And when they won, I thought of my mother. My mother was born on the North Side. She was a Cubs fan. My father was born on the South Side, Sox fan, mixed marriage, as they say in Chicago.
Yes.
And they had 10 kids, and whoever was good when you were, 8, 9, 10 years old, that was your team. And so my mom and either dad would take you down to the Comiskey or my mom to Wrigley. And so when they won, my mom had passed away years earlier, and I thought of her and wept. And then I saw the next couple of days that people had gone to Wrigley, and on that brick wall, written of their fathers, grandfathers, grandmothers, moms, whatever, buddies. This one's for you or whatever on all
Yeah.
those bricks. And it was the same feeling of that intergenerational solidarity, if I can use a fancy word. Do you think that still obtains in the hyper gambling, digital sports world of today? And this is kind of leads to your book, right?
Yeah, I think it does. I do think it does. It's sometimes harder to see. It sometimes feels like we are just being bombarded by, whether it's gambling, whether it's sort of this angry sort of talk radio-ish vibe or whatever it is. It feels like that. But no, I truly believe that it's very much there. If the Blue Jays had won the World Series, it would have been the first one in more than 30 years, and that would have been an intergenerational moment. It wasn't for the Dodgers this time because they just won it last year, but that kind of thing is still parents to their kids, to their grandkids. I mean, that's still very much there, and I think that. When I wrote, so my next book after that, is Why We Love Baseball. And when I wrote Why We Love Baseball, I did this, there we go. There it is. I did the book tour, and it was the biggest book tour I had done up to that point. I went to like 30 cities or something like that, which was great. And everywhere I went, I would say, they would say afterwards something like, okay, we've got the signing line afterward and it'll be, half an hour or whatever. And I would always say, look, I don't want this to come off wrong, but it's going to be an hour and a half. It's going to be 2 hours. It's not going to be a half an hour because every person in the line is going to want to tell me why they love baseball, how they fell in love with it, about their grandmother listening to the game in the backyard with their grandmother during a barbecue, or their dad taking them to their first game at Yankee Stadium or whatever. Every single place I went, that's what people wanted to share. And it was beautiful, and I loved it. And I would never, I enjoyed every single moment of it. So I believe that's there. I know it's there. But again, it does feel sometimes hard to find in the world that we live in.
Yeah, in part because, as you pointed out, the opportunity for people to write or to tell visual others, there's great video, storytelling on YouTube, to say
Sure.
nothing of ESPN and everywhere else. But the writing, it's harder for people to find the kind of storytelling you do. But it brings us really, I think, neatly to your next book because it's about the mystery, from what I understand. You're going to tell me, but it sounds fascinating. First, it's global.
Yep.
Second, it's about something about fandom itself, the experience, where that comes from. Tell me about it.
It's so exciting. The book is coming out May 19th, which is just way too far away. I'm so eager for everybody to see this book. So my friend Michael Schur, who I've been doing a podcast with for more than a decade, guy created Parks and Recreation and Brooklyn Nine-Nine and The Good Place, one of the big TV producers in the world. We've been friends forever, and he calls me up one day and says, "I've got this idea. We should travel around the world and try to get at the heart of what it means to be a fan and, figure out what it is that connects us as fans. Like what the fans who go to the World Darts Championship in London, how do they compare to, fans of the Pittsburgh Steelers? How do they compare to fans of Liverpool? How do they compare to fans of the Atlanta Braves or whatever it might be? There's something. I mean, the overriding theory was there is something that connects us all, no matter what the sport is, no matter what and it's not just sports. It's people who love Taylor Swift, people who love all these other things. And so he's like, we should do this. We should do this book together. And I'm like, yeah, okay, let's do it. Because I'm not going to say I don't want to travel around the world and go to different sporting events and cool events with Mike Schur. I mean, that seemed like a pretty good opportunity for me. So we did it. And I believe we went to 35 or 36 different things, which is crazy. It ended up being there are multiple countries involved. We did go to the World Darts Championship, which is one of my all-time favorite chapters and things. But it ended up being pretty North America centric. We figure if we ever do a sequel, we'll hit the world a little more. But it's all over. It's all over. So we went to I went to an indigenous stickball World Series in Philadelphia, Mississippi. Went to a pickleball tournament in Kansas City, went to a chess tournament in St. Louis, went to a hockey game in Montreal, went to unrivaled 3-on-3 women's basketball in Miami. I mean, we went to all of these crazy places and some very big events as well. I mean, big baseball, big football stuff. And it was such a blast. I got to tell you, I mean, as fun as it sounds, that's how fun it was. It's funny because every person I've told to, they were like, what a great idea. But what they mean is, what a great idea for you to do that. Like for you to convince somebody to pay you to do that is a really great idea. And I love it so much because as fun and as good as the idea is, and I think it is a really, really great idea, I think the book is 10 times better. I really do. I think we found things and wrote about things that were completely unexpected, completely from the heart in big ways that I don't think we could have seen coming. We found these breakthrough moments at places we just never expected. And it was all just about sort of opening our heart to these fans and trying to understand. So what is it you love about this? What is it that makes sense to you? And we don't, it's not like, I mean, there are plenty of fans featured, but it's not like we go around interviewing fans. It's not like a social, it's mostly him and I goofing off is what it mostly is. But inside of that is all of this just really touching. We're trying not to give too much away from the book yet, but I went to someone's home and watched, and I use watched with quotation marks, the Daytona 500 with a NASCAR fan who is blind. And it was she listens to it on the radio. That's how she follows it. And it was just beautiful. It was just beautiful just to see, like, what is it you're getting out of this, and trying to understand, especially something like NASCAR, which is so visual. That's all it is. It's colors and crashes and anticipation and all of that. And to see the joy that she got from just listening and imagining and sort of getting this sense of it, it was really beautiful. And there were just so many things like that, unexpected opportunities like that came along that just, I'm just so excited for people to see this book.
Yeah, that sounds great. What's the name?
Big Fan. It's just called Big Fan. Yeah. It's, I think we traveled, it's on the title. I don't remember the exact number, but it's like two friends, 81,000 miles and finding about the heart of the world of sports or something like that. And, but there's more than sports. That's the other thing is, like, there's a lot more than sports in there.
Yeah, that really is part of it, that magic or the energy, the force that comes out of fandom. So as a Cubs fan, I managed to make my way to Wrigley Field with my son for Game 3 of the series against the Brewers. Now, they were down 0-2 at that point. It was an elimination game. Wrigley was packed, as you can imagine.
Sure.
And I'm a political reporter, mostly, by trade, right? And I felt like I rarely feel, like we were all friends.
Yeah.
We have this terrible, stupid divide in the country that I think is cartoonish and exaggerated, but there's a piece of it in each and every one of us, probably. It's important issues and all of that, so we're going to have a good fight about them. Something happened to the nature of that fight to coarsen it and all the rest of it. But in that stadium, I was hugging guys I know probably, if they knew more about me, would not, quite happy to hug me. It was cool.
It's so true. I mean, one of the enduring themes of this book, when we first started thinking about it and then the way it turned out, was about connection, right? This thing that connects us. And, you hear people say all the time, oh, it's the Abe Lincoln line, right? More connects us than divides us, right? We are Americans. There's a lot there that connects all of us, but we don't see it in motion that much, in our lives, just for all of the reasons that every political reporter has talked about. But yeah, you go, if you go into the stadium when the Pittsburgh Steelers are playing, there's no anything. They're just Steelers fans, right? Yeah. Same thing in Cleveland, the same thing in Chicago, and the same thing in Atlanta, and the same thing in Phoenix, and the same thing in Dallas. I mean, that it's like, and it's the most important thing in that moment. Like, everything else goes away, at least for the 3 hours that the game is going on. This is what we're here for, right? And nothing matters more. And so you don't care what the other person thinks about any of these other issues. It doesn't matter. We're all here. We're all Chiefs fans, right? So I think that was, we wanted to get at the heart of that too. Like, try to get a sense of, like, okay, I think we know that. Like, I think we all understand that, like, on a sort of a larger level. But what is that? What is it that, and why does it appeal to us so much? I mean, this was the big thing with Mike, which is great. Mike is a crazy Red Sox fan. And by crazy, I mean truly crazy. He can't even watch the Red Sox because he gets too nervous. So he tapes the games and then kind of, like, just pokes around, and he doesn't, it's so nerve-wracking for him. And he's like, what is this? I'm a grown man. I'm 50 years old. What is it about this that does this to me? And that was, for him, such a compelling part of this book.
Good.
And for me as well, I had other things that I was interested in as well. But that idea, what is this thing? Why is this so important? You talked about meeting 4 popes, which is incredible. I don't remember which pope it was that said that, but said that football is unimportant, but among all unimportant things, it's the most important, right? like that's, and I think that's right. I really think that's right.
That sounds like Pope Francis. He was a huge fan of San Lorenzo, his team in Argentina. Well, having talked about Game 3 in Wrigley, let's bring in my companion here. I'm gonna.
Yes.
So this is Michael, and also like he's 11 and an excellent reader. Truly hard to get him to read, but this helped a lot, I would say.
Awesome.
And I figured I would ask you a question that we have been kind of debating over the last couple of weeks. So, who's the greatest baseball player of all time, Shohei Ohtani or Babe Ruth? And Michael's a Shohei guy. I'm a Babe Ruth guy. Michael, you want to make your case for Shohei?
All right, I think Shohei's the best because, they're both like great all-around players, like pitching, hitting, like fielding too with Babe Ruth. But I think just because Otani's like just such a great base stealer, I think it puts him over the edges better than Babe Ruth.
All right, that's acceptable to me. But for me, the argument I have is like bigger, and I don't think he buys into it at all. But to me, the thing I love most about Babe Ruth, and you kind of talk about this as well, a kid from nowhere nobody wanted,
Right.
struts into this game, looks around, says, fellas, let's play it differently, right? Changes American culture, the big bop or whatever you want to call them. And to me, that plus the 340 or whatever it is, lifetime average and the 700 home runs, and he held a pitching record in the World Series until I think Seaver broke it or whatever. But Shohei takes your breath away.
Yeah.
So what's the verdict?
Well, I have this theory about greatness. I have this theory that my theory about greatness is that Tiger Woods played golf better than anybody's ever played it. Tiger Woods is the greatest at that. But if you ask me who the greatest golfer is, I think it's Jack Nicklaus, because I think you have to just look over his entire career and all of the accomplishments and his ability to stay healthy and win, the major record now probably will never get broken and all of that sort of thing. I think a little bit about that. First of all, Shohei's midstream, right? Like Shohei, we hope we have another 10 years of this with Shohei. By the end, there may be no argument whatsoever. I think it's the same thing. I think that Shohei Ohtani is the greatest baseball player who ever lived. He is playing baseball at a level no other person has ever played. However, if you look at the whole career, how the impact on the game, the impact on baseball, all of that, then I think it's still Babe Ruth in that sense. Now, I did not have Babe Ruth as my number one player, as you know. I had Willie Mays as my number one player because I think Willie Mays did everything that somebody could do. Including one thing that Shohei doesn't do is play defense, right? Shohei, not because he can't, but because it's awfully tough to be a pitcher and an outfielder and a DH and steal bases and everything else. But I don't think anybody's played baseball the way Shohei Ohtani has played baseball. I mean, to do it in this time, and one of the things that I would compare about the two is you talk about Babe Ruth walking in and saying, I want to change this game. Shohei Ohtani came to America and said, I'm doing both. Nobody wanted him to. Nobody wanted him to do both. And he said, I will only sign with a team that lets me do both. I've got to pitch and I want to hit. That's my goal. And I think that's a transcendent kind of thing.
I'm going to turn the floor over to Michael for just one more question, but I just wanted to ask you, do you play MLB The Show at all? Do you play that at all?
I have played it in the past, yes. I'm actually very, very excited about it because obviously the Negro Leagues are now involved, which is my favorite part of it. Yeah.
And one of the things that's kind of bonded us around, he's masterful. I'm a kludge. But when they put the historical players in there, not just the Negro Leagues players, but all these historical players.
Sure.
And I saw Ernie Banks at the plate in that game, and they replicate the swing and the stance or the pitching motion of Marichal or whatever, and it's like seeing ghosts. in the game. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It really is.
It's so great, and it was such a bit of genius on those guys' part, the MLB The Show guys' part, because if you're gonna, everybody always talks about how you're gonna get kids involved in the game. You have to freshen it up. I don't think that's true. I mean, look, yes, the game could use some freshening on a lot of levels, but kids will like to play like MLB The Show with Babe Ruth or Ted Williams or Ernie Banks or Satchel Paige. I mean, kids are not opposed to that kind of thing. That's what makes baseball great,
Do you?
I like playing with Ted Williams a lot.
I'll bet. Any questions? Got anything you want to say? No pressure.
Who do you think in the NFL is the best running back of all time?
Oh, very good. That's coming at me from a whole different level. So I just did a book, Why We Love Football, a couple years ago, and I counted down the greatest players, and I had Jim Brown as the greatest running back of all time at that time. But I think probably a couple of the guys today are so good. Saquon Barkley has just changed the way the game is played again. Like, he changed it back to the way the game used to be. And to do that with the defenses the way they are, he's pretty darn good.
Yeah. Well, I'm a Walter Payton guy.
Well, yeah, and I wrote in the book for you that 11 Walter Paytons could beat any 11 of anybody else. Like, that's what I like. If you had 11 Walter Paytons on offense and you had 11 anybody else's on defense, and vice versa, Walter Payton would win because he was the most versatile player of all time.
And I loved watching him block a blitzing linebacker.
Oh, he was incredible blocker. But of course, he could throw. He could play quarterback if he needed to. He was, he could kick. I mean, he did everything, absolutely everything.
He was great, the greatest of all time. All right, so, well, this has been fantastic. It's really a kind of a dream come true. I'm obviously a fan, and I can't wait for the next book to come out May 19th. Big fan. A look at fandom around the world with your friend, and that just sounds fantastic. Joe, it's been great meeting you, great talking to you. Thanks for joining us, and good luck and everything.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.